Hello, welcome to another video, and this is part two of videos that I'm just looking at with specifically how to strengthen weak ankles. In the first video we looked specifically at both balance exercises and proprioceptive type exercises to try and strengthen more the ligaments and the nervous system's ability to react and with reflexes and control to prevent the further sprains or the ankle rolling as such. So this time we're looking at a different type of strengthening, more like the muscular type things and more so than the neuromuscular. So one of the first exercises that most people think of is a calf raise. And it's obviously a logical choice, and it definitely does strengthen through the calf muscles in a big way, even the big toe and the toes to some degree. This is a great exercise. I prefer to do unloaded calf raises more for endurance. So I'm usually looking to do 15 to 30 reps as opposed to treating it like a normal strength exercise where maybe I'm working 8 to 12 reps and you're thinking, okay, I want to fatigue at 12, so I'll add load. I prefer these to be to last longer because that's more of its purpose or its function. All right, so I'll use other exercises that will have this sort of plantar flexion that you'll see in a minute that'll demand more of it with explosive stuff, but in terms of this basic movement, I'll use a lot of endurance training for that. All right, so a good target to reach would be 30 on a single leg. So that was actually part of a fitness test here in Australia they used for, I'm not sure if they still do, but they were using it for the Australian netball team players, so because they had a high incidence of ankle sprains, so if they didn't get at least 30, they would have failed the fitness test. All right, so it's a great one you could use. So once I've done that, I'll bring back some of the BOSU type things again, and this time I'm really not really looking to just stand there and balance. I'm more like trying to get the reaction of, you can see how quickly my ankles have to react to the landing, because in a second when I'm going to load it, I really need this landing to be perfect. So in this gives me an opportunity to try and work with two legs where it's quite simple. So if anything, it's probably more of a quadricep exercise than an ankle one, but I'm just getting my body prepared for the landings, because when I go to single leg landing, that's where there's a lot of and that's also where the calf raise doesn't do as much, because it's training the muscles and the joint in a concentric movement, but the problem is going to be in the eccentric movement. All right, so once I've done the two leg BOSU landings, I'm going to try and do the single leg one. So I could use like two arms here, which is kind of simpler. For most people, they'll use the two arm sort of swing. I tend to not like that. I like to try and make it more like a running action. So so there's a little bit more coordination with this. So I'm jumping off right to land on the left. So I've got a concentric movement and an eccentric movement. So the eccentric is there. The concentric one was the jump and push off on the right leg. So obviously then I would switch it to reverse their role. So depending on whichever ankle I'm the worst at, I'm going to spend more time. And it's like I said, it's always the eccentric movement that you have the most problem with. All right, so with a BOSU, it's obviously being unstable, but it's a kind of a cushioned landing as well. So everything I did in the first phase with the basic balance exercises, I can basically take it to another level, and it becomes more functional. Now this is where it starts to get more loaded, because now I'm going to do like a lateral bound. So again, the same thing, I'm going to landing in, so at that point there, that left ankle has to be really strong, has a lot of help from the hamstrings, glutes and quads. On the up phase here, this is often when there's a lot of momentum heading laterally. So when I'm heading this way, the ankle has to really absorb this, because I can't really use my legs strength so much because my legs straighten out. So there's a big part of it's the core, but even bigger so is the ankle, and that's often where you'll see the ankle roll over and the person just stumble. So they won't actually fall, but they'll stumble. They won't control that landing. On this part here, this is where the cutting movement gets into it. So when I'm coming low into that right leg, I've got more help from all the bigger muscles, but I still have to control that action, and I have to really be careful of the foot plant. So the foot plant has to be very vertical. If I just go back on that again, you'll see I have to make sure that I keep this foot pretty straight. I don't want it turning out too much, because that's when I get in trouble with the knee. And so that's where a lot of the single leg strength stuff will be very, very vital and important to make sure you're executing this perfect foot plant. All right. So a lot of the problems I see with ankles I see also with ACL injuries in sports. So again, it's just one of those. They share the same problem, but the injury is just different. So taking this to another level is just adding the BOSU to it. So again, the unstable part of it is actually quite easy, because I don't have to balance on it long. I'm more like a trampoline, just bouncing off it, and it's actually the floor landing that's the harder part. And you can see right there, that's what I spoke about a minute ago, where if you don't control that reflex and the core and the ankle don't work together, you're going to keep going. In this case, I'm going to fall out to the right. Now, I'm doing this nice and steady, but really I want to try and speed it up and shorten the contact time. So you'll see there, that's more like a real cutting movement. So loading up the landing leg to coordinate with the hip and the knee to execute a perfect movement, and not roll the ankle over. This is where you really develop the strength, the power, and the ability to control the landing so that you don't sprain. So going from stable to unstable, and really short and fast to stop and pause. All right, so really powerful exercises, and really develop your confidence as much as the strength in all the muscular part. All right, so let's look at the next part of this, because it starts to get a little bit harder. Okay, so this is where we're specifically looking at the cutting drill. So that's where I'm using a small box to jump over. And basically it's not really a strength drill, it's more of a coordination drill. It's really, really explosively fast to do it right. So let's have a look at how it works. So I'm basically just going to jump really fast across the box and land, and then I would come back. So this is the slow motion, just taking you through it, right? So what I want to do is when I hit the ground, I want to really explode back fast. And you'll see how my foot plant on that left leg has to be planted perfectly straight. So there, and then I really need to stay quite low, so never straighten up and push back across to the other side. So, and that's again where you'll see in the sports where a lot of the problem in the knee and the ankle will happen, specifically in that movement. All right. So once you've done maybe 3 or 4, 5 reps tops, then you change sides. And you see that arm swing again comes into it. You really want to try and get that arm swing and stay nice and low. All right. So you're pushing off that right foot. See how I really had to plant it straight. You'll see right there. See how I can't afford to have any of that foot deviating out this way, and that you'll often see that when the foot's weak or the hip is weak. All right. So this is a great exercise that follows on from the lateral bound. Now the next one is the harder one, because we're actually going to go forward, backward, and sideways all in a row. So let's look at this last one. Okay, so this last one is really probably my favourite of all the ankle strengthening ones. Again, very, very specific to a lot of the demands of the sport, and if you did an ankle in sport, but even if you didn't play sport, this is such a great exercise. Really ties the calf raise, the lateral bound, the balance work, and the lateral cutting movement all into one exercise. It looks quite simple when you watch someone, but it's actually a lot harder than it looks. So I'm basically using this line right here to jump across. So you can see in the background there I've got 3 lines. I usually use that, but for this video to see it better, I'm just pretending that those lines are there. But I could use like some masking tape or duct tape or something like that, just to give me a guide as to something to jump over. So all I've got to do is just jump over this line with a single leg stance and try and move in a diagonal fashion, where I'm just moving really, really fast. And I'm trying to jump laterally in a diagonal direction, trying to control that foot plant, not let that toe turn out, which did a couple times. Now the hard part here is you've got to try and do this backward. All right, now backward's way harder. So again, this is where we see the eccentric part of it on the landing. That would be actually where the muscles are kind of working in reverse. So glutes get a big pump here, as do the quads, but the calf is the one that cops it the most. All right, and you again trying to just control left to right. I'm not as good on my left. I've had more ankle sprains on my left than my right foot, so I'm nowhere near as effective on the left, especially when I go backwards. you really notice the strength deficit when you're going on the backward, and you'll notice that I won't jump as quite as precise as I did on the right one. All right, so it's such a great exercise. Again, maybe only do that maybe 4 meters, 3-4 meters, maybe 2 sets, 3 sets with a good rest in between would be all you'd need. But that'd be how I'd start to tie all of the things together. So I'm really focusing more on the landings than the actual pushing off. Although there is a fair bit of the pushing off, it's the landing where everything goes wrong. And these are great exercises that tie into all the other ones that we've already looked at. Obviously I would still need to do lunges and single leg squats and all those other single leg deadlifts, especially so all my static moving things, but anything that's dynamic with balance, proprioception and these sort of plyometric type things are where you're going to get the biggest benefits from. Alright, so anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video and it gives you some ideas for your training, and we'll see you next time.